Hi, I'm Michael Stone. I'm a Holotropic Breathwork Facilitator and the founder of Neurodynamic Breathwork. And today, I'm honored to be interviewing Byron Metcalf. He is, in my opinion, one of the premier composers of breathwork music in the world, and I've been breathing to his music for 2 decades. And Byron holds a PhD in transpersonal psychology, a master's degree in counseling psychology, and is a professional musician and a certified holotropic breathwork facilitator. Welcome, Byron, and thank you so much for uh, being here to talk to me today.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks for the invitation, Michael. I've been looking forward to it, and I mean, we've got a lot of common ground here, so I'm excited to get into it with you, especially during these unprecedented and challenging times, with COVID and all of that. And this is a perfect time to be talking about ways to go inward and explore, and yeah. So let's dive deeply.
All right, sounds good. So let's get started with talking about how did you actually get into music, and were you drawn to it even as a child, or did that come later in life?
Um, it, it, well, yeah, yeah, I was drawn to it as a child, but not as becoming a musician or anything. I was really fortunate. My father was a music lover and a record collector. He wasn't a musician, but he loved every genre of music, and he had except for opera. He didn't care for opera. So, but everything else, but a lot of jazz, a lot of big band stuff, and all that. And so I grew up, uh, every day there was music in the house playing, on the hi-fi, back when it was still mono and everything, So and my father just, he was just kept collecting records and, they had 78s and LPs when they came out, all that stuff. And so the exposure of that was really great. And I got kind of really intrigued with drums, with the big band music. And so, I saw the Gene Krupa story, really terrible movie, with Sal Manuel, but the music was great. And it just lit me up. I was about 14, 15, something like that. And I was just possessed by it, literally. And, and got some drumsticks. I was beating on everything in the house. And my father, I mean, I can't believe it looking back on it. They actually bought me an old beat up set of drums. I must have drove them crazy, because I was on them all the time. I mean, I just played all the time and didn't take lessons or anything. I was just playing the records. And 9 months later, I'm playing in clubs and bars, or this is in Phoenix, Arizona, and playing in clubs and stuff, And most of it was country music and the kind of cheesy stuff, but I didn't care. I just wanted to play and making a heck of a lot more money than my peers were, my buddies were, pumping gas and sacking groceries, So you know, it was great, and so it just went from there. I thought it'd be a hobby, but it just took over. So
And how did you ultimately get into the type of music that you play is so amazing for expanded state of awareness
yeah.
experiences, and for especially towards the beginning of music sets where people
Hmm.
are just starting to breathe and they're wanting to really drop in and having their ego mind disappear. And I've been listening to your music for, it's been almost 20 years now in breathwork journeys.
Hmm.
And how do you get the ideas for those? And how did you get into it in the first place, into doing that style of music?
Yeah, well, it all kind of coalesces in the transpersonal psychology and the breath work and studying with Stan and all of that. I had gotten, I got out of the music business after a lot of really just remarkable success and getting to play, gold records and all the television shows and Grammys and all that kind of stuff. So I was really fortunate. I was based out of Nashville, and it just kind of got burned out in midlife. Just kind of okay, I'm tired of this. There's got to be something else. And as Tav Sparks, the like great Tav Sparks used to say, he says, I was kind of caught by the "is this all there is" syndrome, and ultimately, to make it a short story, I ended up quitting the music business and going back to school and getting a formal education, which I hadn't done any of that before. I was just a high school grad, so I got a bachelor's degree and my master's degree and ultimately a PhD. But I got when I met Stan and started the training, he did a he did a module on shamanism. They were teaching, and back there the training is different now. But back then, I got certified in '89 with a second large group, and so I was just enthralled by that. I was already a psychotherapist in private practice by that time, and the drumming and all this stuff. I said, well, this is a skill set I could use in the healing arts. And ultimately, so I started getting into hand drums and shamanic drums and, that kind of thing. I was running men's groups back there in the men's movement back then. And, I said, I want to make an album that I want to breathe to, drumming album, because they're always looking for the good drumming albums and for the opening, in that first hour. And so I knew I'd had a couple of recording studios in Nashville, that kind of thing. So I knew the gear, I knew all the technical stuff pretty well. And, but I didn't have all that, but a buddy of mine did, and in Prescott, Arizona by that time. And so I rented all his gear and set him up in the living room where we were actually doing breathwork sessions and stuff with my then partner and workshops. And so I just had all these ideas, and that ultimately became Helpers, Guides, and Allies. And so my first album. And so I thought that'd be it. I said, okay, this was cool, and it was well received. I'm still getting royalties, and that's 22 years later, right? And or more. It came out in '98, so there you go. It just evolved. It just evolved. I want to do more of this. I want to do more of this. I found that, hey, I've got something unique here that I can offer. My playing style was developing for this kind of music. And, now it's just turned into, a frontline business for me, and I'm sitting here in my recording studio. It's just a great place to be, and all these great people have been here, Steve Roach, Mark Selig, and Oscar Miro Casada, and Sandra Ingerman, and Ralph Bessner. And I mean, so it's the energy field in here, as you can imagine, so you'll need to come and visit sometime so you can get a real hit of it, so. Anyway, I'll leave it there, and we can kind of expand on, how that, because I could just talk about this stuff forever. Geez.
Yes. In your tracks, like in shamanism, it's mostly just drumming and rattling, but in your tracks, you, to me, really amplify the experience by putting in some sound behind it and so it isn't just the drumming, it's just how you put together all the elements that to me makes them really incredible, amazing breathwork tracks. How did you
Right.
come up with that kind of formula, or how you do it, and how do you figure out how to mix it together so it'll really work as best as possible in breathwork?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of that goes into a lot of areas, and we can explore how much detail you want. But I think I was really informed by how Steve Roach put together. Steve Roach, all the synthesizer stuff is just amazing stuff. But he's also has utilized a lot of percussion, and he must have been a drummer in a past life, because the rhythms he puts together with these what we call groove boxes, the electronic things, are just fascinating. Just fascinating. It just kind of lights me up when I hear them. And so there were polyrhythmic things going, with the percussion, and then the zones that he would create to help hold the space and help, so again, it's creating a trance with, classic shamanism. You're just, there's this kind of thing, the boom, 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 and you do that for 8 to 12 minutes. If you're hooked up to an EEG, you're going to be in a theta state, even if you try to resist it, because the brain just entrains with it. So I take that principle, but there's in all of my tracks, there's that driving thing, that repetition is the key. See, repetition is the key to that. But all the polyrhythms that I put with it, instead of just the static, that. And then the drones, I love the didgeridoo. That was originally a hit, it's such a great instrument, because it was originally a healing instrument, not a musical instrument. It only became a musical instrument, last century or so. And so what that can do with the drums and everything, well, it's pretty magical, as you know. The album I did with, I've had Didge on almost every single album I've done, and beginning with Helpers, Guides, and Allies, and then did one with this master dig player, Rob Thomas, and medicine work, we called it, and because that's what it was, and just didgeridoo and drumming, and then how we create the soundscapes, and with the technology we have now is just so amazing, and that's part of, that's a huge part of it. How you put all the things together, because you had mentioned that. How do you weave it together? And it's really, it's a creative process, just like painting. You do something, well, that doesn't really work, and try something else, a different color. And so, it, yeah, I mean, I could go on and on. And hopefully you'll come here and I can show you how it works. Because sometimes I'll have 40, 50, 60 actually tracks or parts going at the same time, weaving in and out in different ways, because it's just me playing the drums. But, on these things, there's, sometimes 20 drum parts, not all playing at the same time, but they're having to weave around together. So I overdub those and do that kind of thing when I feel that this is what it needs,
And do you actually compose the tracks specifically with these kind of expanded state of awareness experiences in mind? I mean, is that the purpose, or is it just kind of, it just flows and some work better than others, or is that kind of like
Yeah.
like you go into it with that goal in mind?
Um, yeah, I mean, what I do is only designed. It's really oriented toward the healing arts and expanded states. So that's a given. I can get inspired to compose something or create something by. I mean, I can listen to a country song and there might be a lyric in there that touched my heart that I want to express that emotion. See, but I'm going to do it with percussion. So I mean, it can come from anywhere. And sometimes I'll just sit down and I says, this got something going on in my head, then I'll see if I can work that out on different sounds, different instruments, percussion instruments, the udus and clay pots or the frame drums and the larger ceremonial drums. And I have a full drum set, that was my original instrument, was the drum kit. And but I've got all those toms, all those drums tuned for ceremonial, like a ceremonial drum, like a tribal thing, And, and so, it just pulls me. I just follow the muse, and oftentimes we'll have a a discrete idea of what I want to create, but that's just a starting point always. You really want to be able to follow the organic unfolding. This is alive. This is alive. This thing, it's going to take me where it needs to take me, and so to skillfully navigate that and to support it is the way it happens, and that's not only the performing, but in the mixing as well. I've never put an album, no, let me take that back. One album I did that was a concept from start to finish, and I knew how I was going to approach it, is shamanic trance dance. And that's because it sounds true. It said, we want shamanic trance dance.
Mm.
We have this out. You're the guy that can do it. And I said, yeah, I am. I know exactly how to go there. And so those things were composed with, okay, I've got this concept. I know how I'm going to, basically how I'm going to do it. Each track is different. I mean, those always unfold in a different way. But as an overall album concept, project concept, that was from start to finish, that's what it was, because the title was there and it was given to me. Yeah. I'm going to have a little tea here. Yeah. Talking a lot, but I like talking about this stuff, obviously.
Oh, this is incredibly interesting to me, and actually, this is the first time we've really had a chance to talk like this. So I'm
Yeah.
learning some new things too. So it's super interesting. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah. My pleasure.
And after you compose a track, do you actually like breathe to it to see how it actually feels when you breathe? Do you
No.
test it out kind of, or you just kind of know that
No, I
this is
know.
it?
At this point, I know. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I'm sitting in here with Mark Seelig, who's a Bonnery flute player and also a breath worker, Groff trained, and all. We have the same world. So, uh, and we're good friends, and so we like spending time together. We know when a track is working. We said, "Boy, you know." how many times I wrote this to Carrie, and when after Tav died, we were talking about how much Tav had really been an inspiration in my music, and I didn't actually realize that until after, I was reflecting on his passing and how that felt because we were really pretty close in the early days, and and there's most of the albums I've done. There's always been during the process, Tav's gonna love this, or
Mm.
I wonder how Tav will respond to this. Is in there because this is such a foundational part of my life. Has been the holotropic model and how that's evolved, and because you can just feel it when it's happening. When the rhythms there, the drums there. You go, it just works. We know when it works. Either for the breath work or for the deeper, slower meditation practices and psychedelic work that a lot of people are doing now. Mark and I have been creating some music for that population and the research groups and everything. So it's an exciting time for that. So we kind of slowed the tempos down and long form, just so that could really develop over time, and let the journey, supporting the journey. That's what it is. Yeah.
So in psychedelic sessions, the music that you compose for that, you're saying it's slower and it's more kind of just gentle and opening, but it's still a lot of uh, percussion and that type of thing, or is it
Yeah.
really quite different?
Well, let me kind of all of the music works for psychedelic work, and some depending on the form, the setting. A lot of the stuff we use in breath work, I've got reports from people that, they're breathing to all. I mean, they're journeying, and whether it's LSD or psilocybin or MDMA, but they all have their own character and quality to it. So, there's preferences on how we would use it, and so we like to create music. Lately, we've been creating music that is more meditational, and it's really supporting a long form meditation practice. And oftentimes, that's going to work with almost any medicine. So it's a personal preference of who's the guide or facilitator or therapist or whatever, what music to use. Because, we've really covered the ground of the heavy, hard rhythmic stuff. And in my own psychedelic work, I know what works for me, but maybe other people would like something else. So, I don't like a lot of heavy drumming because I don't need it, if you're in a medicine journey. But some people really, really do. And so I prefer things that are more heart-centered and not too fast of a tempo and never getting too dark. We just
Mm.
want to hold space.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I know there's probably a few people who are listening to this who are music composers and who might be interested in getting into this type of work, composing music for these expanded state of awareness experiences. And what advice would you have for them? And also, maybe you can tell me a little bit about your mentoring program for shamanic and tribal ambient music production too.
Yeah. Hmm. Well, I think what I would advise is for the composers, the musicians, and stuff to do a lot of breath work, do a lot of inner work that utilizes music in that way, and see how it affects them, see how it inspires you, and just go from there because you can ask. I mean, as we work with the breath work, the teachers within, the healers within, the guidance is there, and so the idea is to tap into it. That's how I learned how to do this. When the inner experience showed me what the frequencies of the music would do, what everything was doing, how everything was put together. Now this is predominantly back many years ago when I was doing a lot. I did about a 3.5 year period of very intense psychedelic work. It started out as healing work and then went more into a creative process, spiritual development, and all that. But it's totally informed my music. And because I could see how the frequencies work together. I could see what frequencies work in the body and in the mind and all of that. And then my challenge was, how do I then bring that to the studio and in the mixing and try to convey that, to represent that in some way that works. And I think I've been pretty successful at it. So and I'm really grateful because this stuff, it's not me. This is coming through me, and I'm just it's like grace, it's coming through, and you're just I can't believe what I'm hearing here. It's real different than I can't believe what I did here, what I created. You get what I'm saying? That's not just a nuance. That's a huge understanding of how this works. And my mentoring program, I'm not a music teacher. If somebody wants to learn drum technique, there's plenty of people out there who can teach at a much lower price point than would be with me. For people who come and work with me, we oftentimes will do meditation practices and do breath work and then get in the studio and see, so it's going back and forth where people can really understand how does music create expanded states? What are the frequencies? What are the vibrations? What are the tempos? What are the sounds? What is the smell of it actually, and all of that. So I most musicians don't really know what I'm talking about, until they've had the experiences. And so that's where it's more of a educational process, but it's experiential education. So I'm not just teaching drums and teaching how to mix, although I do some of that, but that's probably 10% of it. Yeah.
Thank you. And when you were with the holotropic sessions, I heard that you were doing some experimenting with actually doing live music during the sessions. Is that correct?
Yeah, a little bit. It wasn't just live music. It was, since by that time, enough of my music was being played in the sessions, breathwork sessions, that I could play along with it. See, and that's pretty trippy, with the rattles and the drums, but mostly rattles because it evolved. I know you and I talked about my own modified form of breathwork, what I call holoshamanic. It's just enough modification of the holotropic model to respect Stan and not call it holotropic. And so that's what we did. And he was, I had his blessings, so it was great. And what this did was just incorporate more shamanic type or tribal music throughout, and also to employ some shamanic healing tools, particularly at the end when people are coming out, instead of just letting it go and run. Just like any regular session, you're bringing, okay, it's time, welcome back, and here we are. If there needs to be body work and all that, of course, that piece is there. But a lot of times it's more energy work and things, just bringing things together. And, that using instruments there really works well, especially the rattles and the bowls and that kind of thing. Didgeridoo in a breathwork thing is just incredible. I've done some workshops with where Steve Roach and I've done workshops and had a breathwork component to it, and we're doing live stuff to our own music. The whole session, 2-hour session, about 2 hours, would be only our music. So it was, you can imagine how potent it was.
Wow.
For the people in there. We were just playing, and Steve's doing a didge around people and stuff, and it's just like, I mean, what a treat.
And from your background, I find it very interesting that all of the directions that you took were all kind of in some way related to transpersonal experiences, or like, you got into um, shamanism, and then you also got into transpersonal psychology. It's like, where did that whole thing start for you? Like, how did you, like, right in the beginning, what kind of said, okay, this is how I want to spend my life? kind of looking at different ways of kind of coming at these expanded states of awareness,
Yeah.
experiences,
Well,
and the transpersonal realm.
right. Well, I was really, really fortunate. So when I got out of the music business, I got hired without any skill set. Well, I had some innate something was coming through that people saw, but I was hired to work at an addiction recovery treatment center as a counselor. I had no background, no credentials or anything. I mean, it was amazing. You know, I was doing some volunteer work. This was in Nashville. There were lots of, you know, musicians and stuff having problems with addiction, alcohol, drugs, and stuff. And so I was able to kind of work with them. And so I was working at this treatment center for very low pay, and it was my first opportunity to go to a training, you know, that off-site training. And this counselor who was going to go to this thing in Austin, Texas, um, uh, you know, like a weekend thing, and a 4 day, I think it was, said, you know, I can't make it. You want to go on my place? And I said, well, sure. I said, what is it? But I was just hungry for, you know, well, this was Stan Gross, Santa Cristina, and Jacqueline Small were doing a workshop there, and which included the breathwork, of course, you know. And so I went. I never heard of Stan Groff. I knew of Jacqueline Small because she had written some stuff around in the addiction field, so she had some credentials there. But Stan Christina, I knew nothing about it. I didn't hardly know how to pronounce holotropic, you know. And so I went and and of course did a breath work, and it blew my mind. I mean, it's just everything changed there. And I said, no matter what, I'm following this. And so one of the most fortunate things that came out of that was that I didn't have to unlearn a lot of stuff. You know, by the time people, especially psychologists or master's level therapists, you know, they come through a more traditional training, and I didn't have that. My first real big hit of understanding psychology was transpersonal psychology. It was Stan and Stan's model. And so that's where I went. And in my formal, you know, my formal education, I you know, studied Freud and, you know, all of it. I had to do that. But I didn't have to unlearn it, you know. And so it just, grace, you know, that was so fortunate for me. And so then that was just my path, the transpersonal path that includes shamanism, of course, and the music and music therapy and all these things, the psychedelic work and all of that. It's just kind of unfolded in an organic, natural, like, okay, this is my world and I'm just going to go where it leads, you know.
That's super interesting. Thank you.
Yeah.
And can you tell us a bit about your Shaman's Heart program?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Um, so uh, I can tell you a little bit or a lot. So this has been evolving for a long time. I did an album back in, let's see, 2005, I think. Started working on it in 2004, called The Shaman's Heart, the original Shaman's Heart. And what that was I said, I want to take, have the most studied tempo rhythm in the shamanic, you know, classic shamanism. The tempo that's been researched the most is 220 beats a minute. So I want to do an album that is that, you know, subdivisions of that, you know, 220, 110, 55. And so it ended up with this kind of heartbeat rhythm at 55. Boom, 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 boom. I did it on a clay pot, Mexican clay pot thing. And and then lots of different, you know, there's 7 tracks on it. But if you were to put a metronome on there from start to the first rattle that you hear that's in tempo, all the way to the end of track 6, which is the last rhythmic track, it's gonna be dead on all the way through. So it really worked. It really worked. And it was so popular after the Hemi-Sync version of it. It won an award and all this stuff. That I thought, well, you know, there needs to be this is a model. This is how I live my life that was coming through, and maybe write a book. And then I decided, I don't want to write a book. It was a good idea, but I didn't want to do it. And then it ended up over time just being, you know, an audio 4 CDs with Monroe Institute and all their Monroe products and all of that. And it kept evolving, though. And the most recent iteration of it, if you want to. It's a much more comprehensive and detailed, and goes way deeper, than the original. Is called the Shaman's Heart Meditation Training Program, which was produced by Sounds True. And so I've done workshops and presentations, based on the Shaman's Heart concept or theme. And basically, I see it as this is my path. This is my model and how I live my life, which is it's just a real nice synthesis of ancient wisdom traditions, shamanic practices, neo-shamanic practices, and transpersonal psychology, so it incorporates everything, and just a way that really works for me, and the integration of all of that, the synthesis of all of it, just getting just kind of so natural for me. And so that's what it is. I'm still working with people coming to sessions, with me, and the, different aspects of it, or people working with the programs. We can do Skype or Zoom or phone sessions to support their ongoing, because if they're working with me directly, it's going to be much more beneficial. They're going to go, because they're going to, like anything, you're going to encounter some difficult material. It's designed to do that, so, so I mean, I could go on about that, so, enough for now. Yeah.
Well, Byron, you've had an amazing life. It's you must have had some kind of interesting experiences with other musicians or with Stan or over the years. Is there just one or two that stands out that you can talk about?
Oh boy. Oh man, one or two. There's a lot. Well, and I have to go back to the '70s and my Nashville days. That's when, I was kind of plugged in with all the, big stars and all of that, and really fortunate. But I got to meet almost everybody, and it was a crazy time, but it was really fun. I mean, I got to play on Kenny Rogers' Gambler album, and She Believes in Me was the biggest record I've ever played on, the multi-platinum thing. And I was married to this big, at the time, a really huge country music star. She was a Dottie West's her name. She was killed in a car wreck back in '92, but and she's been inducted to the Country Music Hall of Fame and all that. So, God, at our house, we've had everybody there almost. Chris Christopherson used to come over all the time, Roger Miller, and Merle Haggard. I mean, it's just all of us. A lot of these folks are gone. I got to play on Waylon Jennings' first record on A&M Records when I was 16. I was 16, so that was my first real big recording session. But Willie Nelson's been at our house, and I met Paul McCartney at a studio. Almost got to play on a McCartney album because his drummer broke his foot. They were out riding go-karts or something, and he broke his hip. And McCartney said, "Wow," he said, "Well, can you hang around because we don't know if he can play?" And I said, "Oh, hell yeah, I'll hang around." Play with Paul McCartney. Ultimately he could play. That. I've got a great Elvis story, but that gets involved in so yeah, it's been pretty fantastic, yeah, all the memories are kind of running through my head right now. The Eagles during the first Hotel California album or tour. I'm sorry, the Hotel California tour. The Eagles were in Nashville, and Dottie knew Joe Walsh because her first husband, former husband Bill West, had developed the wah wah bag that Joe Walsh played at. Like great stuff. Well, Bill invented that and gave him the first one, so they were friends. They knew each other, and when the Eagles were doing their concert there in the Hotel California thing, we called and said, "Hey, we'd love to come see the show." He said, "Yeah, come on backstage." And so here we were getting to see the Eagles, right? I'm just this far from, a few feet from Henley's drum set, watching all this amazing stuff. I mean, they were incredible. And so we asked him and said, if you not do anything afterwards, why don't you come over? There's nobody there, we just hang out. We got a pool table, and just, quiet, and, not a bunch of no fans except us, So, And I'll be damned if they didn't all show up later that night in separate limousines. They're coming through, and so I got to hang out for the evening, with Don Henley and Joe Walsh, and Felder was playing with them at the time. But anyway, it's great stories. I mean, who gets to do that stuff? I mean, it's just we didn't create it; it just happens, And so, yeah, when you said it's amazing life, I was like, yeah, yeah, it's not without its challenges either. So, but this kind of work, the work that you do and we do in this all of these great tools that we have, help us to navigate those challenging times, as the cycles of death and rebirth continue. And we are really in a death cycle right now. Of course, yesterday, hopefully opening into a whole new period of maybe opening to the light. We'll see, but I think there's some rough times ahead. A lot to clean up, So this, I like always believe what Stan said when he says, our literal survival pretty much depends on us waking up. Because if we don't, we're going to take ourselves out. We're really close to it, and boy, this year has really shown us how easy we could get there. So, but we can go off on that one if you want.
Well, your music definitely supports people in seeing who they really are. I mean, I see it so many times in the breathwork sessions, how it's just an incredible support in allowing people to really drop in, get in touch with their inner resources, and really move through these difficult times. So it's really a gift to the world that you've given
thank you.
through your music.
Well, as COVID has, I've got in my studio computer, that's the, thing. I've got a folder that's called BAM. That's my initials, BAM, Byron Allen Metcalf. And I've got a folder called BAM COVID, and it's got, it's the main folder for all these other tracks that I've been working on since March. Just because I've had a lot of extra time because I can't see in-person clients and and that kind of stuff. So we're not traveling and doing seminars and things. Steve Roach and I have canceled 2 workshops, and so all of that stuff is got to put on hold. So that just opened up a lot more room and time and space in the studio just to explore, just to kind of experiment. I've got projects happening that are very cool, but a little more experimentation time than is typical for me. And so I've got some tracks coming that are I'm just so excited about. Steve Roach and I got a new album coming next year that is going to be mind-blowing. It's the first one we've done in 5 years. It's a full collaboration, and so good stuff. Mark Seeley is going to be here in a couple of months to finish up I'm co-producing his third in his Disciple series, more based on Indian ragas with a bansuri flute. And so we recorded all that, mixing it here, and so that's happening, and lots of good stuff. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm looking forward to that album. I'm very excited now.
Me too.
So, Byron, if people who are listening are interested in either maybe working with you in your mentorship program or purchasing your CDs or your downloads, where do they go to find you?
Well, for the music, let's start with the music first. First and foremost, I just send them to my Bandcamp page. Bandcamp has been really supportive to musicians and artists. I mean, it's just great, so you can get the disc and the downloads there. And the downloads, what's great about Bandcamp is you get the download in any format you want, anything from a full WAV file to, MP3. So Bandcamp's great. Then just come directly to me. I've got a website. If you go to byronmetcalf.com, that's a portal for both my healing arts, what's called Holoshamanic Strategies, and my music. So that'll, wherever you want to go there. And there's information on the Holoshamanic site that talks about my work and, contacts and stuff like that, just reach out, sure. And, you know, I don't have like a cookie cutter or kind of template programs. The way I work with people is we say, what do you want to do? What do you want to learn? What do you want to experience? And we co-create a format for that. And that could be anywhere from an afternoon or a series of Zoom sessions or Skype sessions or phone calls. Or, a guy come all the way from Japan to work with me for a week, you know, doing breath work, meditations. Also, as a musician, want to study some of that. And so we're back and forth, and we just, we put it together. And so that's exciting. I love working that way, so, yeah. And hopefully soon, I'm hoping, but by the summer at least, be able to really be able to work with people in person, a lot more, and because I love that work. So if you come here, we're working right in the studio, and I've also got the breathwork stuff. Is this wonderful futon with a memory foam, and it is surround. You got your own speakers like this, and headphones, and it's all set up. It's just incredible. And so you're sitting right in an altar space, basically, and looking into the studio from that space. So you'll love it. You got to come, man. Come.
I'd love to. Yeah, once the pandemic settles down, we'll
Yeah,
actually come
yeah.
visit.
All right.
And I actually love Bandcamp. What I love about it is that so many artists now are only putting up music where you can only download it as an MP3.
Hmm.
And to me, that's super frustrating because I can really tell
Hmm.
the difference. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know, many people either they can't or they can. And when you're playing music at very soft volume, it really is hard to tell. But if you're playing it at fairly loud volume, like in breathwork,
And a good system.
yeah, it makes
Yeah.
if through a good
Yeah.
system, it makes a huge
Hmm.
difference. And
Yeah.
for those people who aren't familiar, like the WAV file is the type of a sound that you would get off a CD,
Hmm.
basically. And the MP3 is where they compress the sound into a file that's maybe 10, 20% as big with some algorithm that a computer does to
Hmm.
figure out kind of what you can hear, what you can't hear, what you need to hear.
Hmm.
And so I really appreciate that about Bandcamp where you actually have a choice because so many
Yeah.
artists now, when you go to their websites or whatever, you can only get MP3s.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
kind of like they don't even
Yeah.
offer WAV files anymore.
Right. With the most recent album that Mark Seelig and I did called The Winds of Spirit, that's available at a 24-bit full master level from hemisync.com. It doesn't have hemisync in it, but they're getting into that doing traditional albums, and stuff, and so they offer that. So it's pretty pristine, as you can imagine. So,
Yeah, it sounds amazing.
yeah.
Byron, thank you so much for taking your time out today
Well,
to be
this
with
was,
me.
I'm looking forward to it, as I said, so thanks for the invitation. And I always enjoy, I mean, this is my life. I love it. And, just sharing it with others, talking about it. What could, what could be better?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess, yeah, I don't want to say to, the listeners and viewers and everybody, it's just, stay safe, stay well, dive deep, and reach out for support and help as you need to, no matter where it is. There's a lot out there. So, these are challenging times. And so there's a lot of tools that you can use. And, we're here. So, yeah,
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much.
you bet.
Mhm.